What is this? What are you doing?
You don't live here anymore, witch.
I'm a 38-year-old guy who was married for about 9 years to a woman I'll call Sarah. From the outside looking in, we probably seemed fine, maybe even happy. Nice house in the suburbs, decent jobs, the whole picture-perfect thing. But the reality behind closed doors was completely different. For the last 3 or 4 years, our marriage had been slowly dying. Sarah had become increasingly critical of absolutely everything I did. And I mean everything. The way I loaded the dishwasher was wrong. My cooking always had too much salt or not enough seasoning. I breathed too loud when I slept. I parked the car wrong in our own driveway. I folded laundry incorrectly. Every single day was a new criticism, a new way I wasn't measuring up. Here's the kicker, though. I paid for everything. The mortgage, utilities, both car payments, groceries, insurance, all of it. Sarah had a full-time job doing freelance consulting, or marketing, or whatever. But she never contributed a dime to household expenses. She'd spend her money on designer bags and expensive clothes, and weekend trips with her friends, while I covered all the actual responsibilities. And still, somehow, I was the problem. I'd cook dinner after working a full day, and she'd scroll through Instagram while eating, then tell me the chicken was overcooked. I'd clean the entire house on Saturday, and she'd walk through pointing out everything I missed. I bought her a MacBook for her work, which cost me nearly $2,000, and she complained it was the wrong color. It was exhausting trying to be enough for someone who would never think I was enough, but I kept trying because that's what you do in a marriage, right? You work on it, you give it another chance, you believe tomorrow will be better. Except tomorrow never came. The criticisms kept coming. The cold shoulders lasted longer, the arguments got more frequent. I'd apologize for things I didn't even do just to keep the peace. Anyway, my buddy Mike throws this annual summer cookout at his place every year. Great guy, been friends since college, has a nice backyard set up with a grill that probably cost more than my first car. This particular Saturday was absolutely perfect weather. Warm sun, clear sky, cold drinks flowing, smell of burgers and hot dogs on the grill. I was standing by the fence with a cold beer, talking with some guys about football and complaining about work in that casual way guys do. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I actually felt relaxed. I wasn't thinking about what mood Sarah would be in when I got home. I wasn't worrying about what I might have done wrong that day. I was just existing and enjoying a beer. Then I saw her car pull up outside. Sarah got out wearing this sundress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, and sunglasses that cost more than my weekly groceries. But it was her expression that told me everything. She had that look, the one I'd learned to recognize over the years, the I'm about to make a scene face. I watched her walk through the yard, past the kids running around with juice boxes, past the other couples chatting and laughing, straight toward me with purpose. I genuinely thought maybe she needed the car keys or wanted to grab a drink or something normal. Instead, she walked right up to me, and before I could even say hello, she started screaming, "Stop acting like you own me!" She yelled it so loud that I swear people 3 houses down the street probably heard. The entire backyard went completely silent. Mike literally froze with his spatula hanging in midair over the grill. His golden retriever Bailey stopped barking mid-bark and just stared. Every single conversation stopped. People turned to look at us. Someone turned down the music. I just stood there holding my beer, genuinely confused about what was happening. "Sarah, I'm literally just standing here holding a beer. I haven't even talked to you today." But she wasn't listening. She pointed her finger at me like she was cross-examining me in court. "You don't get a say in where I go or who I'm with. I'm done with you controlling me." I could see people pulling out their phones. Mike's wife, Kelly, had her hand over her mouth looking horrified. The guys I'd been talking to suddenly found their shoes incredibly interesting. And Sarah just kept going, getting louder and more dramatic with every sentence. "We're not even really married. This is just a stupid piece of paper. This whole thing is meaningless. I don't belong to you." That's when something inside me just clicked. Not in an angry, explosive way, but in a moment of absolute clarity. I'd spent nearly a decade walking on eggshells around this woman. Years apologizing for breathing wrong or existing in her field of vision. Years trying to be good enough when nothing was ever going to be enough for her. And here she was, humiliating me in front of everyone we knew, declaring our marriage meaningless for absolutely no reason except that she felt like it. So I made a decision right there in that moment. I smiled, took a slow, deliberate sip of my beer, and said in the calmest voice I could manage, "You're absolutely right, Sarah. We're not married." The silence that followed was something else entirely. You could hear the wind rustling the leaves. You could hear someone's ice cubes clinking in their glass. Sarah's mouth literally fell open. Her jaw dropped so far I almost heard it click. She'd been expecting me to argue, to defend myself, to beg her to calm down, to apologize for whatever imaginary offense I'd committed. Instead, I agreed with her. I raised my beer bottle slightly like I was making a toast and added, "To freedom," then took another long drink. For maybe 10 full seconds, absolutely nobody moved. People were frozen, like someone had hit pause on the whole scene. Then Sarah's face went through this rapid transformation from shocked to confused to furious. Her cheeks turned red. Her hands balled into fists. She sputtered something about me being insane and impossible, turned on her heel, and stormed off toward her car. She got in, slammed the door hard enough that the sound echoed, and peeled out of Mike's driveway so fast she left actual tire marks on the pavement. I stayed. I finished my burger, had another beer, talked with Mike and some of the other guys. Everyone kept asking if I was okay, if I needed anything, if I wanted to talk about it. I told them honestly that I felt fine. Better than fine, actually. Several people came up to pat me on the shoulder or give me these knowing looks like they completely understood what I'd just done. When I finally left a couple hours later, Mike walked me to my truck. "You sure you're good, man?" he asked quietly. "Never better," I told him. And I meant it. That night, my phone started blowing up with texts from Sarah. I'm talking 30, maybe 40 messages in the span of 3 hours, all in caps lock, all variations of "how dare you embarrass me like that, and you think you're so funny, and we need to talk right now." I read the first few, then just muted my phone completely and went to bed. I slept better that night than I had in months, maybe years. The next morning, Sarah announced via text that she was going to stay with her sister for the weekend to clear her head and figure things out. I replied with a simple, "Okay," and nothing else. She was probably expecting me to beg her not to go or to apologize or to promise we'd work things out. Instead, I saw it as an opportunity. That weekend gave me time to think clearly for the first time in years. And more importantly, it gave me time to take action. Monday morning at exactly 8 o'clock, a white van pulled up outside my house. Painted on the side in bold red letters was Miller's Lock and Key. The driver who got out was a guy named Rick, probably in his mid-50s, with a beard and wearing a flannel shirt that had clearly seen some things. He had that look of a man who'd witnessed plenty of domestic drama in his line of work. He walked up and gave me this knowing nod. "Morning. You the one who called about a lock change?" "That's me," I said, stepping aside to let him in. I'd already poured 2 cups of coffee, so I handed him one. He took it, looked around the house, and said, "Wife problems?" "Ex-wife problems," I corrected. Rick grinned and took a sip. "Smart man. You'd be shocked how many guys wait until it's way too late. Most guys call me in a panic, whispering so their wives don't hear." He started pulling tools out of his bag. One time I had a guy call me from his car in the driveway. His wife was inside baking muffins after he found out she cheated. He wanted the locks changed before the muffins finished cooling. "Please tell me you did it," I said. "Of course. Those blueberry muffins didn't stand a chance." We both laughed. It was that kind of laugh men share when they realize heartbreak and relationship disasters are universal experiences, like bad weather and traffic jams. Rick got to work and I watched him. Every click and clack of his tools sounded like a small victory. The front door lock popped out and a new one went in. The back door got the same treatment. The garage door, even the side gate leading to the backyard. Each old lock that came out felt like shedding another layer of frustration and control. "Want me to do the side door too?" Rick asked. Sometimes they try every possible entry point. "Absolutely," I said. She's the type who'd climb through a window if she thought it would prove a point. Rick snorted. "I've seen it happen. Better safe than sorry." By 9:30, the entire operation was complete. Rick handed me a set of 4 shiny new keys plus a spare. They gleamed in my hand like little pieces of freedom. "There you go, boss," he said, packing up his tools. "You're officially secure. She can't get in even if she wanted to." I turned one of the keys over in my hand. "You know what, Rick? This might be the most satisfying purchase I've ever made." He gave me a friendly pat on the shoulder. "Divorce ain't cheap, but peace of mind is worth every dime. Trust me on that." I tipped him an extra $50. The man had earned it. As his van disappeared down the street, I locked the front door just to hear the sound. That click was different now. Final, secure, like punctuation at the end of a long run-on sentence. Next, I drove to Home Depot. I needed supplies for phase 2 of my plan. The place was busy with the usual weekend warrior types buying lumber and paint. I grabbed a cart and headed straight for the moving section. Heavy-duty boxes in 3 different sizes. Bubble wrap, packing tape, a good industrial strength marker. Labels. The young guy at checkout, probably 19 or 20 with no wedding ring and presumably no relationship drama yet, looked at my cart and asked cheerfully, "Someone moving?" "Someone's being moved," I replied. He paused, caught the tone, and gave me this solemn nod. "Aisle 9 has more boxes if you need them, man." By the time I got back home with my supplies, I was in full organizational mode. I wasn't angry or vindictive. I was systematic and thorough. I started in the bedroom with Sarah's side of the closet, which looked like a high-end boutique. Everything was color-coded and perfectly aligned. She'd spent hours arranging it all just so. I began packing methodically. Box 1 got all her blouses and dresses, each one folded properly because I'm not an animal. Box 2 was shoes, and let me tell you, the woman had enough shoes to open a small store. Each pair got wrapped carefully in tissue paper. Box 3 was handbags, which probably collectively cost more than my truck. I packed them with bubble wrap to protect them. Every single box got a clear label written in bold black marker. Sarah's clothing, handle with care. Sarah's shoes, fragile. Sarah's accessories, designer items. I was petty, sure, but I was organized about it. I moved through the house like I was on a mission. The bathroom got cleaned out of all her makeup and skincare products, which filled 2 boxes by itself. Her office/spare bedroom had notebooks and candles and motivational sticky notes everywhere that said things like, "You deserve better," and "manifest peace." The irony wasn't lost on me. All of it got packed. In the living room, I found her wedding ring sitting on the coffee table where she'd left it during one of our many fights. I stared at it for a moment, this little circle of gold that was supposed to represent eternal love and commitment. Then I dropped it into a small box and labeled it miscellaneous items. By evening, I had 19 boxes total, all stacked neatly by the front door. The house felt different, lighter, cleaner, like I'd just done a massive spring cleaning and gotten rid of everything that didn't bring me joy. I made myself dinner, a thick steak with mashed potatoes and vegetables, and ate it standing at the kitchen counter in complete silence. No criticism about my cooking technique, no dramatic sighs from across the table, no comments about red meat being unhealthy, just me, my food, and blessed quiet. Tuesday morning, I had an appointment with a divorce attorney. I'd gotten his name from a coworker who'd gone through a brutal divorce a few years back and said this lawyer had saved his life, or at least his bank account. Robert Davies had an office downtown in one of those old brick buildings with gold lettering on the window that screamed, "Established since 1985. The waiting room smelled like expensive carpet cleaner and old law books. The receptionist, a woman probably in her 30s with a professional smile, offered me coffee or water. I took the coffee because I was running on pure adrenaline and determination at that point. A few minutes later, Robert came out to greet me. He was probably in his early 60s, gray hair perfectly combed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He had sharp eyes that looked like they could spot a lie from across the room. We sat down in his office, which was exactly what you'd expect. Dark wood desk, leather chairs, walls lined with law books and framed certificates. He folded his hands on the desk and said, "So, Mr. Johnson, tell me what brings you here today." I told him everything. I started with the backyard barbecue incident, describing how Sarah had screamed at me in front of at least 20 witnesses, declaring our marriage meaningless and saying we weren't really married. I told him about the years of criticism and control, how I'd paid for everything while she contributed nothing financially despite working full-time. Then I pulled out my phone and showed him the text messages Sarah had sent after the barbecue. Scroll after scroll of all caps rants. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. This marriage is just a social experiment that failed. I want to be free and I don't care what happens." Robert read through them carefully, occasionally nodding or making small notes on his legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair with the slightest smile. "Mr. Johnson," he said, "in my 25 years of practicing family law, I've seen a lot of complicated cases. Messy divorces where both parties fight over every fork and spoon. This is not one of those cases. Your wife essentially divorced herself in public and then documented it in writing. You have witnesses, text evidence, and financial records. This is what we call an open and shut situation." "So what happens now?" I asked. We file for dissolution of marriage, citing abandonment, and constructive termination of the relationship. Given your documentation, you'll retain the house since you've paid the mortgage exclusively. Your savings stay yours, and you won't owe a single penny in alimony because she has full-time employment and publicly rejected the marriage. How long does this take? I can have the paperwork filed by end of business tomorrow. She'll be served within a week. Court hearing will probably be scheduled within a month. And given the evidence, I expect the judge to rule in your favor quickly. I signed all the necessary paperwork right there in his office. My hand was steady, no hesitation. Robert walked me to the door and said, "Go home and enjoy your evening, Mr. Johnson. You've just taken the first step toward getting your life back." When I got home, I decided to complete my plan. I'd packed Sarah's stuff. Now, I needed to deliver it. I spent the afternoon carefully carrying all 19 boxes out to my front lawn. I'd bought a large weatherproof tarp, so I arranged everything in neat rows and covered it all to protect from rain. The whole display looked oddly professional, like an extremely organized yard sale. Then I grabbed an old wooden sign I'd used for a garage sale years ago, took my marker, and wrote in big letters, "Property of Sarah, pickup arranged." I stuck it right in front of the boxes. My neighbor Carol, who's probably 70 and has lived on this street since before I was born, came outside almost immediately. She actually had a bowl of popcorn with her. She sat down on her porch rocker and called out, "Well, this is better than my afternoon soaps." "Just doing some house cleaning, Carol," I called back. "I never liked how that woman talked to you, dear," she said matter-of-factly. "I always thought you were too good for her. You're better off." Within an hour, every neighbor within a 3-house radius had found some excuse to come outside. The guy directly across the street suddenly needed to check his sprinkler system. The couple next door went for a walk that somehow looped past my house at least 4 times. The family at the corner brought their dog out for an unusually long bathroom break. Fresh drama spreads through suburbia faster than a wildfire. I sat on my porch with a cold beer watching the show. People were trying to be subtle about looking, but they weren't very good at it. I didn't care. Let them look. Then, because I'm apparently petty when properly motivated, and because I figured Sarah would find out anyway, I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the neatly arranged boxes on my lawn. I opened Facebook and posted it with a simple caption, "Freedom delivery complete, some assembly required." I hit post and set my phone down. Didn't expect much reaction. Maybe a few likes from close friends who knew we were having problems. I was wrong. Within 15 minutes, I had 20 likes. Within an hour, 50 likes and a dozen comments. My buddy Mike commented, "You absolute legend." His wife Kelly wrote, "OMG, I can't believe you actually did this." People I hadn't talked to since high school were commenting things like king behavior and respect. Someone from our neighborhood Facebook group, which I barely paid attention to, reposted my photo with the title, "The Most Organized Divorce in Suburban History." The comments on that post were even better. People were debating whether I'd gone too far or not far enough. Someone praised my labeling system. Someone else said their husband could learn from my packing skills. My phone started ringing. Friends, coworkers, even some extended family members calling to ask what was happening. My cousin Jake called and said, "Dude, Grandma saw your post. She's 83 and barely uses Facebook, but she saw it and said, and I quote, 'That boy finally grew a backbone.'" I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my beer. Wednesday afternoon, Robert's office called. The divorce petition had been officially filed with the court. Sarah would be served papers within 48 hours. Everything was moving forward exactly as planned. Thursday was quiet. I went to work, came home, grilled a burger, and enjoyed my evening. No text from Sarah yet, which meant she probably hadn't been served the papers yet. Friday evening, right around 7 o'clock, I heard tires screeching outside. I looked out the window and there was Sarah's Honda, stopping so abruptly in front of my house that I'm surprised she didn't rear-end my mailbox. She got out of the car, ripped off her sunglasses with dramatic flair, and just stared at the boxes on my lawn. I watched from the window as her face went through about 5 different emotions in 10 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, recognition, realization, and finally, pure rage. Her face turned red. Her hands clenched into fists. Then came the screaming. "What the hell is this?" I calmly walked out onto my porch, beer already in hand, completely relaxed. "Evening, Sarah. Nice weather we're having, don't you think? Why is all my stuff outside?" Her voice was shrill enough to probably disturb dogs in the next zip code. "Because that's where it belongs now. You don't live here anymore." She stormed up the walkway toward me. You changed the locks. You can't do that. Why would your keys work? You don't live here, I repeated calmly, taking a sip of my beer. Ethan, you can't be serious. You had no right to do any of this. Before I could respond, Carol's voice called out from across the street. Bless that woman's nosy soul. Oh, sweetie, your ex-husband said you wanted to be single. Isn't that what you declared at the barbecue in front of everyone? Sarah's face went from red to purple. She spun toward me, fury radiating from every pore. You're humiliating me. Everyone in the neighborhood is talking about me. You humiliated yourself at Mike's barbecue in front of everyone we know, I said calmly. This is just me being practical and organized about the situation you created. I'm calling the police, she threatened, pulling out her phone. Please do, I said, completely unfazed. I'd absolutely love to explain to them how you publicly ended our marriage in front of 20 witnesses, sent me abusive text messages about it, and are now trespassing on property you no longer have legal access to. Her hand froze over her phone. She didn't call. Then she switched tactics. The anger melted away and her voice went soft and vulnerable. Ethan, come on, we don't have to do this. We both said things we didn't mean in the heat of the moment. Let's just talk about this like adults. Talk to my lawyer, I said. His name is Robert Davies. His office information is on the divorce papers you were served yesterday. Her eyes went wide. Divorce papers? You're actually divorcing me? You divorced yourself, Sarah. At Mike's barbecue, you declared our marriage meaningless in front of everyone. I'm just doing the legal paperwork to make it official. She tried tears next. Her eyes welled up and her lip trembled. How can you be so cold? Don't you feel anything? I thought about that question for a moment. I feel relieved. For the first time in years, I feel like I can actually breathe in my own house. That's what I feel. She stood there for another minute, trying different approaches. Anger, sadness, guilt, tripping, bargaining. None of it worked. Finally, she grabbed one box, threw it in her car, and drove off in another display of aggressive driving. The next day, her sister showed up with a U-Haul truck and a couple of friends. They loaded all the boxes without saying a single word to me. I watched from my porch, waved politely, and went back to my Saturday. 2 weeks passed. Life felt strange in a good way. The house was quiet, but not tense. I cooked what I wanted, watched what I wanted, existed without constantly monitoring someone else's mood. Work was easier because I wasn't dreading going home. I slept better than I had in years. Then Robert called. Court hearing scheduled for next Friday at 9 a.m, dress professionally, bring nothing but yourself, and prepare for a very short hearing. This should be straightforward. That Friday arrived, and I put on my best Navy suit, the one I usually save for important work meetings. I met Robert outside the courthouse. He was already there with his briefcase and coffee, looking confident and prepared. Is she here? I asked. He nodded toward the courthouse steps. Sarah was there with her lawyer, a younger guy with too much hair gel who I vaguely recognized from late-night TV commercials about getting you justice. Sarah was wearing a cream-colored suit and sunglasses like she was arriving at a movie premiere instead of her divorce hearing. Fair warning, Robert said quietly. They're requesting alimony. I almost laughed out loud. She publicly declared our marriage meaningless on social media, and now she wants alimony. Exactly, Robert said with a slight smile. This is going to be fun to watch. Inside the courtroom, we sat at opposite tables. Sarah wouldn't look at me. The judge, a woman probably in her late 50s with reading glasses and a severely no-nonsense expression, called the hearing to order. Let's make this efficient, people, the judge said, looking down at her papers. Mr. Johnson, you're filing for dissolution of marriage, citing abandonment and public repudiation of the marital relationship? Robert stood up. Yes, Your Honor. We have multiple witnesses to a public incident where Mrs. Johnson explicitly stated she did not consider herself married to my client. We also have documented evidence including social media posts and text messages supporting this claim. He slid a folder across to the judge, who opened it and started reading. Sarah's lawyer cleared his throat and stood up. Your Honor, my client may have used some heated language during a private disagreement, but heated language at a public barbecue with 20 witnesses, Robert interrupted smoothly. If I may, Your Honor, Exhibit A is Mrs. Johnson's Facebook post, made 3 days after the incident, stating, and I quote, "Marriage is just a social experiment that failed." This was posted publicly and received 56 likes and 23 laughing emoji reactions. The judge looked up sharply. She posted this where other people could see it? Yes, ma'am. Public Facebook post visible to her entire friends list and beyond due to shares. A couple of people in the courtroom gallery actually chuckled. Even the bailiff was smirking. Sarah's lawyer looked increasingly flustered. Your Honor, those were emotional statements made during a period of distress, not legal declarations of intent. Robert flipped another page in his folder. Then perhaps Exhibit B will clarify intent, Your Honor? Text messages from Mrs. Johnson to my client, sent over a 3-day period following the incident. Key quotes include, "We are done. I want to be free. I don't care what happens next." And my personal favorite, "This whole marriage thing was a mistake from the start." The judge adjusted her glasses and looked directly at Sarah. "Mrs. Johnson, you wrote these things?" Sarah's lawyer answered for her. "Your Honor, my client was upset." "I'm asking Mrs. Johnson," the judge said firmly. Sarah shifted in her seat. "I was angry. People say things when they're angry." "And then post them on social media?" the judge asked. "And send them in text messages over multiple days?" She turned back to the papers. "Mr. Jacobs, you're requesting alimony for your client." Hair gel guy cleared his throat. "Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Johnson reduced her career opportunities to support the marriage." "Actually, Your Honor," Robert interjected smoothly, "Mrs. Johnson's employment records, which we've included in the filing, show she's been employed full-time for the past 3 consecutive years at Redline Marketing, earning approximately $65,000 annually. Meanwhile, my client has been solely responsible for the mortgage, all utilities, both vehicle payments, home insurance, property taxes, and all household expenses. We have bank statements documenting this pattern for the past 5 years." The judge flipped through more papers, then looked up at Sarah with an expression that was definitely not sympathetic. "So, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You're employed full-time. You publicly declared your marriage meaningless both verbally and in writing on social media. You sent text messages to your husband stating you wanted freedom and the marriage was over, and now you want him to pay you spousal support?" Sarah's lawyer opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The judge continued, "I've been on this bench for 19 years. I see messy divorces constantly. People fighting over every dollar, using children as weapons, trying to hurt each other through the legal system. But this," she tapped the folder, "this is one of the most clear-cut cases I've seen. Mrs. Johnson, you ended this marriage publicly, in writing, and with multiple witnesses. You cannot now claim you deserve financial support from a marriage you yourself declared over and meaningless." She turned to me. "Mr. Johnson, I'm granting your petition for dissolution of marriage. You retain full ownership of the marital home, all vehicles registered in your name, and all savings and checking accounts. No alimony is owed given Mrs. Johnson's employment status and her explicit repudiation of the marriage. This divorce is granted effective immediately." The gavel came down with a sharp final crack. Sarah gasped audibly. "This isn't fair. He manipulated—" The judge cut her off with a look that could freeze lava. "What's not fair, Mrs. Johnson, is declaring yourself single on the internet and then expecting a judge to award you money from a marriage you publicly stated was meaningless. We're done here. Next case." Walking out of that courthouse felt surreal. The sun seemed brighter. The air felt cleaner. Robert shook my hand firmly. "That went even better than I expected. She made it too easy for us." "Thank you for everything," I said. "Go enjoy your freedom, Mr. Johnson. You've earned it. Send me a check when you get a chance, but take your time. I know you're good for it." I drove home with all the windows down and the music up, just feeling alive. When I pulled into my driveway, my house looked different somehow. Not like a place I'd been imprisoned, but like a place I actually wanted to be. That evening, I did what had become my ritual. I sat on my porch with a cold beer and watched the sunset. My phone buzzed with congratulations from friends who'd somehow already heard about the hearing. Mike texted, "Dude, you're officially a legend in our friend group. The group chat renamed itself Team Freedom in your honor." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Typed back, "Freedom looks good on me." About a week later, Mike called and asked if I wanted to grab burgers at Applebee's, just a casual weeknight catch-up. We met there around 7, got a booth, ordered our food, and were halfway through our meals when Mike suddenly stopped chewing and his eyes went wide. "Don't look now," he whispered, which of course made me immediately look. Sarah was sitting 2 tables away with a group of friends. She was clearly in the middle of a dramatic rant about me, based on her wild hand gestures and the expression on her face. Her friends were nodding along, but you could tell they weren't really engaged. One was openly scrolling through her phone. Another kept checking her watch. The third looked like she wanted to be literally anywhere else. Mike grinned. "She's still working the sympathy circuit." "Good luck with that," I said, taking a bite of my burger. Audiences seemed to be getting smaller. Sarah glanced over and saw me. She froze mid-gesture, her hand hanging in the air. Our eyes met across the restaurant. I calmly raised my beer in a small, friendly toast and smiled. Just smiled. Her face went pale. She quickly turned back to her friends, said something that looked urgent, grabbed her purse, and practically ran out of the restaurant. Her friends all looked at each other with "what just happened" expressions. Mike was dying laughing, trying to keep it quiet. That was the most perfectly executed move I've ever seen. You didn't say a word and she fled. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. "Hey, this is Emily. We met at Mike's barbecue. I hope this isn't weird, but would you want to grab coffee sometime?" Emily, Mike's wife's friend, the brunette who'd been at the barbecue that day and had given me a sympathetic smile while Sarah was screaming. She'd seemed nice, normal, drama-free. Mike saw me smiling at my phone. "Who's that?" "Emily," I said. "She just asked me out for coffee." Mike's jaw literally dropped. "The one from the barbecue? The one who witnessed the whole thing? Dude, you've officially achieved legendary status." We laughed about it, finished our meal, and headed out. As I drove home that night, I realized something important. I didn't hate Sarah. I wasn't even angry at her anymore. I just didn't recognize the person she'd become. And more importantly, I didn't recognize the person I'd been trying to be to keep her happy. The divorce papers arrived in a standard manila envelope a couple days later. Official court seal, stamped and signed. Final. I sat on my porch that evening, same spot I'd been sitting almost every evening now, and looked through them. 12 years of my life reduced to legal paperwork and a judge's signature, but I didn't feel sad. I felt free. Carol waved from across the street. "How are you holding up, dear?" "Better than I've been in years," I called back honestly. "Good. You deserve happiness." That girl never appreciated what she had right in front of her. I had coffee with Emily that Saturday. We met at a local place, nothing fancy, just good coffee and comfortable seating. It was easy and natural. We talked about work, hobbies, our families, regular normal stuff. No drama, no criticism, no walking on eggshells wondering what would set her off. Just two people getting to know each other. We laughed at the same jokes. We had similar taste in movies. She didn't pull out her phone once during our conversation. We've been on several dates since then, and it's been genuinely nice. I'm not saying it's some fairy tale romance. It's just normal and healthy and drama-free, which feels revolutionary after what I'd been through. People ask me if I'd do anything differently, and honestly, no. I spent years trying to save something that one person can't save alone. Marriage takes two people working together, and when one person checks out, there's nothing the other person can do. Sarah wanted out, but didn't want to be the one to pull the trigger and look like the bad guy. So she pushed and prodded and criticized until I finally had enough. In the end, she got exactly what she wanted. We both did. The final piece came about a month after the divorce was finalized. Sarah had started accidentally running into me at places I regularly went. The gym at the exact time I always worked out. The grocery store I always shopped at. The coffee shop near my office. It was getting weird and borderline stalking behavior. I went back to Robert and we filed for a no-contact order. The judge granted it immediately given the pattern of behavior. That put a stop to it. Haven't seen or heard from her since. Now I'm just living my life on my own terms. I work, hang out with friends, date Emily, and enjoy the simple pleasure of coming home to a house that feels like mine. No arguments waiting for me when I walk in the door. No criticism about how I made dinner or parked the car. Just peace and quiet. Last weekend I was doing my usual evening routine, sitting on the porch at sunset with a beer, when I realized something. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt this deeply content. Not happy in a jumping up and down excited way, but content. Satisfied with where my life was and where it was headed. I raised my beer toward the empty driveway and said quietly to myself, "To freedom." Carol must have heard me because she called out from her porch, "And to new beginnings, dear." "That too," I agreed, smiling. Sometimes you don't realize you're in prison until someone finally opens the door. And sometimes that someone is you. The whole neighborhood knows my story now. I'm the guy who stood his ground at a barbecue and came out the other side better for it. People joke that I handled my divorce better than most people handle their daily commute. But here's the real truth. I just stopped accepting unacceptable behavior. I stopped apologizing for existing. I stopped letting someone else's unhappiness become my responsibility to fix. And when Sarah finally said out loud what we'd both known for years, that we weren't really married in any way that mattered anymore, I simply agreed with her. The rest was just paperwork and logistics. These days I sleep through the night without anxiety dreams. I laugh at movies without being told I'm immature. I make plans without checking someone else's mood first. I cook dinner the way I like it. I exist without performing or pretending or walking on eggshells. I'm just living, and it turns out that's enough. More than enough. So yeah, a backyard barbecue ended my 9-year marriage. Sarah meant it as humiliation. It turned into liberation. And somehow, inexplicably, it became the best thing that ever happened to me. Life's funny like that sometimes.